On today's edition of the Cowboy Up Podcast, we're exploring the stories behind what we eat. In southern Arizona, we have stunning sunsets and a culinary heritage that stretches back more than 4,000 years. In 2015, Tucson, Arizona made history by becoming the first UNESCO City of Gastronomy in the United States. Leading the charge in this endeavor is Jonathan Mabry, the Executive Director of the Tucson City of Gastronomy. His organization has a mission to grow a sustainable desert community by supporting its creative food cultures. This is more than just great restaurants. The organization's goals include celebrating and preserving the region's rich agricultural history, supporting local food businesses, and fostering a food system that's environmentally and economically resilient. The impact has been tangible, and Tucson has seen a flourishing of its food scene. The nonprofit has established a certification program like Resilient Kitchen and others which empower the community through heritage foodways. And their annual Pueblos del Maíz festival generates millions of dollars in economic impact for the city. This isn't just about food, it's about identity, sustainability, and building a thriving community from the ground up. So, get ready to dig in as we explore how Jonathan Mabry and the Tucson City of Gastronomy are proving that food can be a powerful source for change.
Stephen, good to see you. How's everything?
Fantastic, Russell. Just happy to be here. Happy to look at your mom's mountains as I always am. We're coming back pretty quick, my wife and I, for our anniversary dinner. She's excited about that. This is, I think, her favorite place in all of Tucson. So we're looking forward to that.
Well, that's perfect.
I think so.
We like it here, and it's summertime, so sometimes people don't like summer here so much. It's some aspects, I get caught up and I get to do other things, and I'm not falling behind every day I get up. I'm getting ahead a little. So summer's fun. Yeah, no, I like it. So
today we've got, the Tucson, before we moved here, and I won't lie, this was a motivator. Before we moved to Tucson, still living in California, one of the things that just about everybody that we talked to said, oh, did you know Tucson is one of the UNESCO Cities of Gastronomy? Well, basically, I like to eat, and I like to eat a variety of things. And one of the things I have learned about Tucson, it is indeed the city of gastronomy, because if you want it, you're going to be able to find it here, and you're going to be able to find a unique take on it if that's what you're looking for. And today we've been able to gather up Jonathan Mabry from the UNESCO. In fact, he's the executive director of the UNESCO City of Gastronomy in Tucson. And he's going to give us some of his insights as to what goes on in Tucson and some of this unique finds. And I've got actually a couple of unique individual questions for him. So, Jonathan, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate y'all having me on today, and I'm happy to be here to talk about why Tucson is this internationally recognized culinary capital.
And I was on the Visit Tucson board for some time, and my wife after that, and so we probably know a little bit more about this than just because it's such a big deal. And Tucson didn't get it just because they have a lot of great restaurants. I mean, there's a complex set of reasons, right? I mean, this is a huge honor, and it's a pretty exclusive club. Maybe explain to people how Tucson got that.
Sure. So Tucson was the first city in the U.S. to be recognized by UNESCO, which is the United Nations Education, Science, and Cultural Organization, to be recognized by UNESCO as a creative city of gastronomy. And we earned that designation after 2 years of applying, they don't make it easy. The bar is high. But in December of 2015, we received the good news that we were the first in the U.S. So what we were recognized for is a couple of things. One of them is how deep our food history is. We have the longest continuous history of agriculture in the USA, right here in Tucson. Archaeologists have found lots of evidence that people have been living where downtown Tucson is today. They've been living there and farming along the banks of the Santa Cruz River for more than 5,000 years.
Wow.
And yeah, and but the Native American tribes that are just, the foundation of Southern Arizona's history, the Tohono O'odham and the Yaqui or Yomé, they've been gathering wild foods from the desert for even longer than that. So we have a very deep food history, but it's not just our native desert foods. More than 300 years ago, the Spanish arrived, and during that colonial period, a lot of foods were introduced, mostly from the Mediterranean world, to our region. And so we, in addition to a more than 5,000 year history of farming, we have a more than 300-year-old tradition of orchards and vineyards and cattle ranching. And then later groups arrived and brought their ingredients and food traditions. The Chinese laborers working on the railroad that arrived in Tucson in 1880. A number of them stayed and introduced some of their traditional foods. And then, of course, when Southern Arizona became part of the U.S. after the Mexican-American War, the Americans started arriving, but they didn't arrive in large numbers until the railroad was here in 1880. And then a lot of Americans arrived on the train, and they're bringing their food traditions with them from whatever their cultural backgrounds are. And all of these things weave together into our cuisine. So we don't just have one. We have several food cultures that go way back here.
So if we start
with interact with each other and influence each other.
Sure, I'm sure. So if we start with the 5,000 years ago, and you talked about the Tohono O'odham and the Yaquis, are we assuming that they are the modern descendants of the Hohokam?
So actually, the very first farmers, we're still trying to figure out their connections to the modern day tribes that are here.
And were they the Hohokam, or were they somebody else?
You're going to find some archaeologists that say yes, the Hohokam developed out of that early farming culture in the Sonoran Desert, and you'll find other archaeologists that say no, the Hohokam were a different group that came in. So the question
that's actually
is not solved at this point.
That's why I asked, because it's I've read lots of different theories on that, or at least a couple.
The important thing to remember about Tucson and Southern Arizona is that this has long been a borderland, and because of that, it's been a cultural crossroads where different cultures have come here and interacted with the indigenous cultures, and like I was saying, all those food traditions of the different cultures have influenced each other. So we have a very unique multicultural food heritage and cuisine here. And as you mentioned at the start of the show, that you can find anything here. You can not only find great, Chinese food, Vietnamese food, Italian food, Thai food, in addition to what the Visitors Bureau calls America's best Mexican food.
Yeah, and they're right about that, by the way.
We've got some interesting fusions of cuisines going on in Tucson. We've got Mexican sushi. We've got pizzas made with birria. We've got those are just a couple of examples, but the chefs are really creative in this city, and they are not only keeping these traditional dishes alive, but they're creating new dishes with these ancient ingredients. So the reasons, to circle back to the question, the reason Tucson was recognized by UNESCO with this designation is we've got this unparalleled food history here that goes back farther than anywhere else that's been documented in the U.S. And we have all this creativity around food. Those are the two main reasons. So the creativity is not just in the cooking. It's also, we've got all these different nonprofits and grassroots groups that are being very innovative, doing innovative things in our local food system. Now, so those two things together, our deep food past and our creativity looking to the future.
Now, we had someone on our podcast probably 6 months ago, and he was from a local farm, BKW Farms, and he talked a lot about the heritage wheat and basically heritage ingredients that are available in many cases really only in the Sonoran Desert. How much of an influence does that have on what's going on in Tucson today, the heritage ingredients that we have? Things like prickly pear, white Sonoran wheat, that sort of thing.
Yeah, a lot of those heritage ingredients, as you call them, are undergoing a revival. So Sonoran white wheat was the very first variety of wheat that was introduced to the New World from the Old World in the 1500s, and it was the first wheat that was cultivated in our part of the world. Father Kino himself introduced it to a number of places in what is now southern Arizona, and it's been grown ever since. It almost died out, but it's very well adapted to the desert. It only needs a little bit of water. It's very heat tolerant, and starting, I believe, in 2011, there was an effort to bring it back, and now every year more and more acres of Sonoran white wheat are planted, and renowned, recognized bakers like Don Guerra at Barrio Bread, he's leading the charge on this heritage grains revival here in southern Arizona. But the Tohono O'odham, they brought back their traditional foods once they got that CAP water in the 1990s. They brought back a number of their traditional crops. And there's just so many exciting things happening in Tucson's food landscape.
If we go back,
it's hard to know when to start.
If we go back to that 5,000 years ago that's been documented, and Tucson's pretty proud of for good reason, do we know what they were growing along the Santa Cruz at that time?
Yeah, those earliest dates for evidence for farming are corn. But squash was introduced soon after corn arrived from the south, and the local hunter-gatherers, they knew what to do with these crops because they were already the local hunter-gatherers. They were living in the places where these introduced crops like corn and squash grow best, and so the local tribes, they knew what to do with these crops that were introduced, and they were the first farmers in what is now the U.S.
Interesting. So being designated as a city of gastronomy, I wonder what are the tangible benefits for Tucson and the surrounding area?
Sure. I mean, we could start with some of the economic impacts. So before the designation, Tucson has always had a very strong tourism industry, a big important part of our economy. So in 2015, the year that we were designated, out of visitors coming to Pima County from out of town, they spent more than $600 million in our restaurants.
Wow.
And in 2023, the year that we have the most recent data, they spent almost $860 million. Close to $1 billion a year that out-of-towners are spending in our restaurants. That's a big increase. So our food scene was already getting really interesting before the designation, and since the designation, it's been blowing up. We have, I counted them up a few months ago, and we have 650 food trucks and hot dog carts and those side of the road food vendors, and that's a 26% increase over the 2 years before. So in just the last couple of years, there's been a more than 25% increase in the number of mobile food vendors. So we have an amazing food truck scene.
Yeah. I read recently that Tucson has more restaurants per capita than Phoenix.
I'll have to do the math. So that sounds interesting. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah,
but we have a lot of annual food and drink festivals here. I counted up 38 of the largest annual food and drink events that we have in Pima County are attended by almost 1 million people a year. Wow. So, yeah, and we have 10 weekly farmers markets that are every year visited by more than 400,000 people.
How about I can't? It's jumped out of my head. The gardens, they're
Mission Gardens.
Mission Gardens. I wanted to call it Presidio, and I knew it was wrong. Mission Gardens, where it's got various. It's got Tono Odom, it's got Mexican, it's got Spanish, it's got Chinese, it's got a variety of eras and groups, gardens in there. It's if you like any of that kind of thing at all, it's really worth a visit. I think it's fantastic.
Agreed. Any of your listeners who've never been or have never been to Tucson, that needs to go on their list, because that's a fascinating place. It's a botanical garden, but they're growing and displaying Tucson's more than 5,000 years of crops and wild foods of the desert, and orchard trees and grapevines and all the whole variety of foods that have been cultivated here and or wild harvested from the desert in one place. It's incredible, and it's a beautiful place.
And it's roughly the same place,
what an amazing organization that runs that.
I mean, it's roughly the same place agriculture started in the U.S.
Yes, that's one of the spots where archaeologists excavated and found that evidence.
Right. So, well, we're way over time, so we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tired of the same old vacations? The endless scrolling, the crowded beaches, the predictable itineraries, and kids with nothing to do and instead they're tied to their devices. This summer, escape to something real, something authentic. Discover the thrill of a real Western adventure at a Dude Ranchers Association accredited ranch. Imagine wide open spaces, horseback rides through stunning landscapes, and evenings spent under a blanket of stars. It's an all-inclusive experience perfect for families, couples, and solo adventurers. Create memories that will last a lifetime with activities like fishing, hiking, and authentic cowboy cookouts. And right now, you can find incredible deals for your 2025 getaway. Score discounts off last-minute family weeks at up to 15% off end-of-summer stays at select ranches. Looking for a kid-free escape? Adults-only weeks are available with special packages. Plus, many ranches are offering deals like third night at 30% off and special discounts for military, firefighters, and other first responders. Don't just book a trip, book an adventure. Find your perfect ranch and explore these ranches and other deals at duderanch.org. That's DUDERANCH.org. Saddle up!
You know, Jonathan, something you said that I thought was interesting, and it really cued a question for me. You talked about the explosion and the number of food trucks in Tucson, and I think you call them sidewalk vending carts with the Sonoran hot dogs, which are incidentally delicious. How do these food trucks coexist with the brick and mortar restaurants? How do they get along with one another?
With tension.
Okay, good enough.
One of the remarkable things that we learned when we were inventorying Tucson's culinary assets when we were working on the application to UNESCO, one of the things we learned is that almost 2/3 of the restaurants in Pima County are locally owned independent businesses, which is much higher than which is much higher than the national average of around 40%. I mean, all three of us have been visiting another city and been disappointed that everything was a national chain, right?
Oh yeah.
You want to check out the local restaurants and taste some, what can I only experience here? So that's one of the reasons we have such an amazing food scene is all of these independent restaurants that are locally owned. And I've circled right out of the remembering the question.
I think you answered it. It was, is there tension, and you answered it, and then you kind of colored it in a little.
Yeah, so some tension develops sometimes when the brick and mortar restaurants, these locally owned restaurants I'm bragging about, have to compete with these popular food trucks parked, a block away or half a block away that don't have all the overhead costs that the brick and mortar restaurants have to deal with. Yeah. So there, we've got to find a way for them to complement each other and not step on each other's toes. But I think there's still room. There's parts of town that if we didn't have those food trucks, there wouldn't be any great places to eat. We've got other parts of town where you could visit 20 food trucks within a few blocks.
Yeah, exactly. Now, another topic that I need some clarity on now. We have friends who they visit Tucson 5 or 6 times a year. In fact, I think they're going to be moving here. Possibly, and I'm not endorsing this, I'm just bringing this up because I know there's more restaurants like this. One of their favorite places to eat is the El Charro Mexican restaurant. It's a chain, small chain that's been in Tucson for 100 plus years.
Yeah, over 100 years. Yeah.
And he loves bringing other people here and telling the story of how they do the meat on the roof and they dry it in one thing and another. He knows the story, believe me, forward, backwards, upside down. It gets a little bit better each time because I think he embellishes. That's just my opinion. I've got to think there's a lot of other dishes like that. What do you know in that particular area, Jonathan?
Well, there are some dishes that I always recommend that people got to try when they come to Tucson. But carne seca that you're talking about, the sun-dried beef that is reconstituted in the kitchen and turned into our lovely carne seca burritos and tacos and plates and stuff. That dish goes way back. So that's a must try for first timers or even repeat visitors to Tucson. It could become one of your favorites. It's very unique. It's delicious when it's done right, and we do it right in Tucson. Sonoran hot dog is another one that I recommend people got to try. Once in your life, you got to try it. If you try it once, you're going to have it again and again. And it's hard for me to come up with a short list because there's so many interesting things going on. I mentioned before the food fusions happening here. Another must-try dish is some of the Mexican sushi in Tucson.
That's new to me.
Mexican sushi?
Yeah.
Is that something you can tell us where some options, where would be places to try that?
Sure. Mostly on the south side. There's both food trucks and bricks and mortar restaurants that specialize in Sonoran style sushi, and it can be excellent.
Interesting. I've never heard of such a thing. I've never heard of anything.
Do you
like
like
that.
it?
Some of it I like quite a bit. Yeah, it's good.
My wife's a big sushi fan. I'm not in that club, but we love Mexican food, so we may have to go venture over there and figure out where to get some.
Go out
Mexican
a little bit on the
sushi.
wild side, right?
Yeah, well, I'm going to have an enchilada, and she can have her I won't be having Mexican sushi, but it sounds cool. Can we talk? You're the executive director of Tucson City of Gastronomy. Is that the title of the nonprofit, and what is the role of the nonprofit today?
Yeah, so when we got the designation in December of 2015, as soon as we were done celebrating, we were staring at each other, asking, what now? Because it's not a plaque we can just put on the wall and keep the designation. We have to do stuff, and we have to address the goals of the Creative Cities program. We have to address some of UNESCO's goals, in addition to figuring out how can we use this designation to broadly benefit the whole community. So we did our research and looked at how other UNESCO creative cities around the U.S. and around the world are managed, and we decided that a nonprofit was going to work best for Tucson. So we have a community-based nonprofit that was formed in 2016. The board members are all volunteers. You'd recognize a number of the names, and they're all just super busy people, but they are very passionate about figuring out how can this nonprofit organize the benefits that come from the designation and make the most out of them. So we are the organization that manages this international UNESCO designation on behalf of the city, and we get some annual support from them. But like every nonprofit, we got to do fundraisers and stuff. But we're very proud of our programs. Our goals are to increase awareness of what are our heritage foods and about our multicultural food heritage. We also promote and incubate local food businesses with free business education. We certify restaurants and food artisans and other locally owned
And what does
businesses.
that mean? What does it mean you certify a restaurant?
Yeah. It's not about how popular their restaurant is on Yelp. It's about recognizing their leadership in areas like supporting local farmers by sourcing ingredients locally as much as possible, by taking extra good care of their employees beyond what's legally required, for giving back to the community in all kinds of ways, for reducing their water use and electricity use, and just putting into place business operations and practices that make them more environmentally friendly. But you get the idea. These are restaurants that are demonstrating real leadership, pointing the right directions for the whole culinary sector here. And we currently have 56 restaurants certified.
I was just going to ask,
the metro
56,
area.
wow.
Yeah. So we have that certification program, which can serve as a guide for both locals and for visitors to know where they should spend their money, vote with their wallets to support locally owned food businesses that share their values. We train chefs to be chef ambassadors for Tucson, and we send them around the world every year to multiple cities around the world to represent Tucson and our food heritage and delicious food here. They also do events and education here in the community. But we do several events during the year. All of them are promoting, highlighting, shining a spotlight on the stars, our locally owned food business stars. So we've also influenced some policies in the city and the county governments. For example, the city council last year adopted a pilot program that creates a reduced discounted water rate for urban farmers, because before that they were paying what households pay for their water.
Yeah, that'd be a little harsh in Tucson.
So we had a student intern from the University of Arizona one semester, and she came up with this idea after researching, where can we improve, policy-wise. And then we fleshed that idea out, took it to the city council, worked with the Pima County Food Alliance because we're a nonprofit, but there's limits to how we can lobby for specific legislation. But the Pima County Food Alliance picked up the ball and carried it down the field, and we scored last year when the council said, yes, that's a great idea. Let's do it.
Nice.
So those are examples of things that our nonprofit does.
if someone's interested in learning more or listing their restaurant, or where exactly do they go? What's the website?
Yeah, get on our website. You can find all of our certified restaurants and food artisans on there. You can learn more about what we do. You can learn more about the UNESCO designation and Tucson's food scene. The website is tucson.cityofgastronomy.org.
Okay, so tucson.cityofgastronomy.org.
That's right. We get a lot of traffic.
I'm sure you do. You do.
So, to what extent, I mean, you talked about one of the criteria for, other than the environmental issues that you talked about, how important do you think it is to today's restaurant goer to have locally sourced food?
Well, my wife and I and our circle of friends, we all like to vote with our wallets and give our business to locally owned businesses to support them. And people coming from out of town, a lot of people feel the same way. You know, when they're visiting a new city, they want to give their business to locally owned businesses. So that's important to a lot of people. We're trying, you know, there's demand for knowledge. You know, we're visiting Tucson. Where should we eat? We've heard about this UNESCO designation. How can we experience it? But they also really like the idea of having a guide to where they can go and not only, you know, experience the authentic flavors of Tucson, but supporting businesses that are really setting great examples.
Excellent. So, you know, one of the big questions that I have, because I've got a brother-in-law who's a Culinary Institute of America chef. In fact, he went to school with Anthony Bourdain in New York. And so I know this is an issue. Tucson has somehow managed to preserve their culinary traditions, even though we've had a monstrous amount of modernization and globalization go on. How have they done that?
You know, our food traditions are sources of identity and really connects people that live here to this place that they live. And it connects us to the past. It's an uninterrupted line from more than 5,000 years ago to today. Those ingredients that were first cultivated 5,000 years ago are still being cooked with in home kitchens and in restaurants. And those foods, those dishes that are made out of those ingredients have stayed relevant to our culture here in Tucson, our multiple food cultures. That's how we've kept those.
Well, and I think, Stephen, alive. To answer your question, I think it's two sides of the coin. You know, I talk to a lot of people that are frustrated, and I get it, by, you know, in fact, Tucson doesn't want an east-west freeway. I mean, that's, people screamed about that since I was a little kid. This, that, you know, we don't want this. We don't accept this kind of progress or that kind of progress. And the other side of that coin is that we're a very old city, as your designation proves, and we have all that Native American Hispanic culture that I think never got run over here in Tucson. And Phoenix has a much shorter history, and it became really a history that's far more Anglo. And so two sides, same coin. Tucson, you know, holds pretty tightly to its roots, and I think particularly from a tourism perspective, it makes it a really interesting, fun place to go, forgetting all the beautiful nature that surrounds us and the uniqueness of the Sonora Desert. We really have that. You feel, even though parts of our history have run over parts of our recent history's run over parts of our older history, unfortunately, and it's gone, and that's tragic. But we've culturally retained our historical roots, and I think makes us a really great place to visit. And your designation, it doesn't just help restaurants, it helps hotels, it helps retail, it's going to end up helping real estate.
It helps the real estate market, right?
There isn't any component other than maybe manufacturing or something that isn't going to, which we don't have much of, that's going to really be positively impacted. And it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Because you're supporting and promoting what got us there in the first place. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, and earlier I was talking about the designation bringing a lot of national and international media attention and boosting food tourism and visitor spending in our restaurants, which of course creates new business opportunities and jobs. I mentioned how many culinary festivals that we have every year, and that's growing from year to year. But interestingly, both the city and the county and Sun Corridor and these Southern Arizona economic development organizations have told us that the UNESCO designation is one of their top talking points when they're trying to lure corporations, national and international corporations, to locate offices here, like the Caterpillar and Hexagon and big international companies like that, because it's a quality of life talking point. And they're trying, they need to convince their workforce to move to Tucson. So the quality of life aspects of the whole decision are important. So not only have those organizations and local governments told us that, but we've heard from companies that are already based here that the UNESCO designation is one of their top talking points when they're trying to recruit top talent to move to Tucson to work here.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Well, and I'm in the tourist sector, so I've traveled Europe, UK, across the U.S., doing travel shows, often with Visit Tucson or AOT or something. And it is, boy, I'll tell you, Visit Tucson, they're smart people and they get it. The designation is top of the list of things they tout, and they should. I think it is so appropriately symbolic of what Tucson is. And there's plenty of things we can criticize, and we'll do that another day. But really, the designation, I think, symbolizes all that's positive of this area, Southern Arizona, Tucson. And hats off to you guys.
It makes Tucsonans proud.
Oh, sure. It should, because it's symbolic and it's so on target. So, really, you all that achieved that first in the U.S. Who else is? We won't even mention them.
There's only one other city in the U.S. that has this UNESCO gastronomy designation, and that's San Antonio.
Well, I got to say, if I weren't in Tucson, that's my favorite city in America.
It's a nice city. Yeah.
I love that city. I just recently, in the last few years, got there. So, but Tucson's number one. We'll remember that. And thank you very much.
Jonathan, thank you for your time and your extensive knowledge. They picked the right person to be the executive director. I can tell you that. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it.
We loved it. Tucson.cityofgastronomy.org.
Russell, food is one of my favorite things in the world. Again, as was referenced by the size that I am, I like to eat. I like to eat good food. And now I know why I think in many cases the food here is so good, because we've got a rich tradition and people actually take the time to build the ingredients, and they do it in the proper manner. It's kind of like every meal we've had here at White Stallion has been absolutely spectacular. My wife brags about it, and so many of the restaurants that are part of the City of Gastronomy list that they are having, what do you say, 56 restaurants, something like that? They're unique, and they've got to do something to get that designation. So this was dare I say, a delicious podcast.
Well, the way I understand it, and it may have been Jonathan, I don't remember who did this, but it was kind of a single-handed effort to really put in the hours and the effort and the documentation to get this designation, which was, it's first in the U.S. It's kind of like first U.S. Pope. We were the first city of gastronomy, and there's only one first, and it has been a real point of distinction for Tucson, which is sometimes an afterthought in terms of destinations, and it's really improved / enhanced the brand.
It has.
Well, that's a wrap, folks, and thank you very much for being a part of the Cowboy Up podcast. As we often say right here, you learn more here by accident than most places by design. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Russell. Perhaps a little lesson in healthy cowboy chow, and even a finer touch of the gastronomy of life right here in Tucson, Arizona. And that is where the White Stallion Ranch is located. That's where this podcast, this popular broadcast, comes from, and we hope that you will check us out. WhiteStallion.com. It's a historic place, a wonderful place, a place for a cowboy adventure. So we have spaces for you in the warmth of Tucson, but if you want to go a little further north to some of the ranches that have a little cooler climb in the summer, the True Ranch Connection can perhaps find a place for you. In fact, I know they can find a place for you for that kind of western adventure up in the North Country. But it's all available as you reach out to us at WhiteStallion.com, WhiteStallion.com. And remember, this should be the summer you think about, perhaps, I'd like to be on a podcast. Well, why don't you let us know? The Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com, the Cowboy Up Podcast at gmail.com. And if you're thinking about maybe I should have my own radio program, well, that's what I do. My name is Stan. I'm the radio man, and reach out to me at stan@witradio.net. Stan@witradio.net. We might even have you doing your own radio program come the fall time of 25. Remember, you want to thrive, not just survive in 25. Hey, a cowboy tip of the hat to you. Best and blessings to you. Till next time, I'm Stan with the Cowboy Up Podcast gang, wishing you all the best and blessings, and bye for now.